Hello and welcome back to my channel. It's been no secret that 2020 has been a difficult year, and so goes the same for my reading. I've not done enough reading this year, admittedly, but I want to bring to you today the best books that I have read this year. I've posted about a lot of these on Twitter and I've seen so many people comment and tell me what they think of the books as well. I've also recently posted a photo of the 21 books that I aim to read in 2021, and some of those are super exciting, so I'm looking forward to reading them. So I wanted to go through with you some of my favourite books this year. I obviously have read more books than this, but these were kind of the ones that I thought were like my favourite or the ones that stood out to me the most. So if I start with one of my absolute favourites, it's All of This Is True by Lygia de Peñaflor. I'm really sorry, I don't know how to pronounce that. I don't know if you can see this, but on the spine it says, what does it say? It says, "Tell me everything." And then if you do it the other way, it says, "You can trust me." I just thought that was such a neat detail. This is actually a proof, I think. Oh yeah, so this is actually an uncorrected proof. So this came out, I'm not sure. This came out at some point. So this was one of the first things that drew me to this book. And the front cover, just all of this is true, and then obviously the true's been crossed out. This was such a well-written book. That's the thing that got me the most. Like, it was so cleverly written. You do have to use your brain in it a lot, because I was trying to figure things out halfway through, and yeah, I just thought the way that the writer has structured this was phenomenal. I'm just trying to see what I wrote about it at the time as well. I don't know if this is just me, but sometimes I forget what I've read and therefore what I thought about the book. So sometimes, or most of the time, I like to write what I thought about each book so that I remember it in future. Because also I was going to read a book the other day and I was like, oh, apparently I've already read this. All of This Is True. This is what I read at the time. It's not my usual kind of book. It's about an author who uses people as characters for her next book. Yeah, so she friends these people that I think are her fans, from what I remember. I read it earlier on in the year. So she like friends these girls, and they're obviously like over the moon because it's one of their favourite authors, but she's using them as characters for her next book. So it's about how she does that. So yeah, I'd basically just put very cleverly written, very intelligent author. The next one, How I Lost You by Susan Webster. No, Susan Webster is the name of the character. How I Lost You by Jenny Blackhurst. I don't think this is a proof. Yeah, so the front cover is like the letter that was sent to the main character, Susan Webster. So the blurb on the back says, "I have no memory of what happened, but I was told I killed my son. And you believe what your loved ones, your doctor, and the police tell you, don't you?" So I wrote about this one. I read How I Lost You this week, which was surprisingly really good. It's about a mother who has spent years in a psychiatric hospital after supposedly murdering her 12-month-old baby. She doesn't have any recollection of it and is determined to prove she didn't do it. Full of twists and turns, never wanted to put it down, actually made me shed a tear at the end. So yeah, so I definitely recommend this. It was, yeah, I remember reading it like really quickly because it was one of those ones that you just want to keep reading, you don't want to put it down. Yeah, so that is a recommendation as well. That is a Bloom, no, is that Bloomsbury one? No, this is Headline book. All of This Is True is a Bloomsbury book. More Than We Can Tell by Bridget Camara. I don't actually remember reading this one, which I feel really bad about, but I wrote some things down for it. So More Than We Can Tell, I wrote, the two main characters in More Than We Can Tell go through equal amounts of pain, and you get to see both sides. Rev, who wears scars from his abusive father, and Emma, who befriends someone dangerous online while dealing with her parents' divorce. There are a lot of issues covered in this book, which I loved, and I felt like I really got to know the characters well. It's a really good read and quite easy to follow. So I guess I just quite liked the way that it was written. I believe it's a YA book, which I don't usually read, but I suppose it's good to spice it up a bit. Two quotes I got from that. I love pulling my favourite quotes from books, so I got from page 325, "I have to swipe at my eyes and I wish they would knock it off. I never realised he was like that, because I was always buried in my own devices, my own projects. I wanted to be just like him. I never looked away from a screen to see what was going on around me." And I think that's so true for nowadays, like everyone, and I'm guilty of it myself, everyone is stuck to their screens and they don't look at what's going around them. The second quote that I pulled was, I think about my conversation with Dad about how everything may happen for a reason, but there are reasons behind reasons and events we can't control, causing ripples we may never see. And like karma and everything happens for a reason, that sort of stuff I believe really heavily in. So I guess that was just, that was a personal favourite quote for me. Then you have the well-known Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race by Rennie Edo-Lodge, which I read in a day. I thought it was fantastic. I took a day off work actually to read this, and then I wrote like an essay on it about how it's touched me, and how from a white person who was fairly privileged as a child, I suppose, it's about black people and it's about white people, and really opened my eyes to a lot of things. And I have folded over, I don't know if you can see this, I have folded over so many pages as well of quotes that I've pulled out, but I've used them in my essay, which I can link down below or whatever. So yeah, that was like a must read of 2020. I think a lot of people were reading it at the time, and I'm really glad that it did so well. Yeah, so I wrote a whole essay and listing my favourite quotes from Why I'm No Longer Talking to White People About Race, but to share just a couple with you. So Rennie interviewed a white person in her book, and Jennifer states, "I haven't lost my white privilege. It hasn't been reduced because I suddenly understand what it is." And I think it's really important that even myself, for example, even if you know what white privilege is, that doesn't mean it just goes away, like it's still there. And one of the important quotes from the book is, "You don't have to be the leader of a global movement or a household name. It can be as small as scale as chipping away at the warped power relations in your workplace. It can be passing on knowledge and skills to those who wouldn't access them otherwise. It can be creative, it can be informal, it can be your job. It doesn't matter what it is as long as you're doing something." Another one, "We should be asking why. When children and women speak up about being raped or sexually assaulted, there are always people around them who bend over backwards to try and find ways to suggest that she incited it or invited it." And then a really powerful one from the author is, "To be white is to be human. To be white is universal. I only know this because I am not." I've recently finished The Man Who Didn't Call by Rosie Walsh. This was published by Pan Macmillan. This, I'll be totally honest, it got to about a third in and I wasn't completely feeling it, and then all of a sudden there was a twist and you're led to believe something that the reader is basically manipulated until a third into the book. And yeah, so it's a fiction book, which I've been focusing mainly on non-fiction personally at the moment, but it's a fiction book, and I was reading it, and then the last half of it, I suppose, I finished like in a day. So it was quite good. It's not necessarily that believable in my opinion, because the main story is like 7 perfect days, then he disappeared. Like they spend 7 days together, and supposedly, they were absolutely wildly in love with each other, which, for a personal opinion, I don't think is true. Like, I don't think that can happen, but that's just me. So yes, that was a really good one. Just quite an easy to read, I suppose, fiction book. Okay, I thought I had it with me, but I don't. Another one that I read, I think it was by Jack Lewis, is called The Science of Sin, which is written from an atheist point of view, but it talks about the 7 deadly sins. It's kind of got science in it, psychology, sociology, which I absolutely love, and really makes you think and kind of puts in real life examples, like this is why this happens. And yeah, so I think it was really good. And I think on the front cover as well, it says why we do the things we know we shouldn't. And I thought it was just really good. I think if people don't necessarily like reading that much, this is one of the books like you should read, because it applies to basically everyone. Another book that I also don't have with me at the moment is I Choose Eleanor, and I didn't actually choose this because it has my name in it, although it is spelt differently. I was recommended this by someone else, my wonderful skills coach, and I read it in a day and was blown away. I thought it was fantastic. I thought the author really got to some deep, dark roots and talked about her experience in such a brilliant way that, yeah, I read it in a day. It was a quick read, it's a small book, but very meaningful. And I wrote some quotes down as well from the book, which I was going to share with you. So the thing about being a teenage girl is that at a certain point, the outside world intrudes on this narrative and it reconstructs your perception of your body without your knowledge or permission. And I think that's very true for any, not necessarily teenage girls, but teenagers in general, where, that self-consciousness starts to come in and self-doubt, and lower self-esteem, etc. I've definitely had that myself, so I thought I connected with that quote a lot. Similarly, the next quote I highlighted was, "Any person who has moved through the world with the body of a woman will know what it feels like to wish to be invisible." And then finally, this is what trauma scholars call a felt memory. It is a body's way of recalling how the rape felt, but because the memory itself is locked away, the brain comes up with an alternative memory to represent the feeling. As far as I know, my attacker did not actually plunge his knife into me, but this is how my body interpreted the feeling that my mind refused to acknowledge. So yeah, so that has like kind of a warning sign written all over it before you read it, so it does cover some serious issues such as rape and sexual assault, but it's such an important read and some good quotes pulled from that. And then I haven't got it with me at the moment, but to finish off, I really liked Santa Jaws. I did some work on this from a marketing and publicity point of view recently, where I was briefing the activity pack to the design team, but I got a copy sent to me and I just loved it. I finished it in like 5 minutes or something. Like it's a super cute, like just easy to read children's book. It's obviously relevant because it was Christmas time and sharks are my favourite animal, weirdly. Sharks are my favourite animal, weirdly, so I was like, oh yes, if it's about sharks, I love it. So I really recommend that to any of you that may have kids or kids that are interested in reading in your family, friend group, whatever. So I guess that's kind of my wrap of my 2020 best reads. It's been a bit of a weird one for reading. I haven't read as much as I probably would have liked to. With the lockdown, I haven't been travelling to work, and normally I was getting the train and I was reading a lot on the journey to London and away from London, back in Kent, which is where I live. So I definitely missed out on a lot of reading time there, but I have been trying to make up for it now, and now that I've got some time off from work, I'm trying to spend my free time reading a lot more. I recently posted on Twitter as well my 21 books that I want to read in 2021, so have a look at that. I'm hoping to do a video on that soon, maybe in the new year as well, so we'll see how that goes. So I'm really looking forward to some of the books that are upcoming that I'm yet to read, and let me know if this was useful, this was entertaining, like me talking about some of the books. As I said before, like my channel is going to be varied. It's going to be talking about basic knowledge of the industry, interviews with professionals, which is coming soon in the new year, which hopefully you've seen on my Twitter, a little bit of snippets about that as well. So let me know if you liked hearing about some of the books I'm reading or whatever. As always, I'll leave my socials in the description below, so you can contact me, let me know what you thought of these books. If you've read them before and had a different opinion to me, I would still love to hear it. So yeah, stay safe everybody and happy reading.